picture. You look at it? Terrible.
Well, you have to look for that back one, don't you?
Yeah, let's go through that door and turn right.
Yeah. Yeah, I went by the foot sign, man, I know it down here, I've been here before.
That's what I thought. Well, she said go down to the right.
I thought there'd be a lot of people here, but I could be wrong. So they all show at one time, right?
Right.
What area did you serve?
Poplar Bluff, and then I go south Needaville, Marden, and then the edge of Campbell, Keelan, Needaville, I mean,
It's your first year as a representative?
you know, it's my third.
Third?
Yeah, third, yeah.
I think Jamie would be pretty good. That's his first.
Hey, hi, how you doing?
How's it going?
Oh,
Hi.
Good.
How's it going?
Well, I think, well, I was hoping he'd be here, but out to, you know,
Yeah, I wanted to kind of,
yeah, it'd be nice to set Bay Wing and see.
yeah, visit with him and see what the focus of this is.
Right.
But John, yeah, this is a
That the music?
Yeah.
Dates
Or hopefully it's our speaker. We'll see how well it works.
Yeah, they can watch them online. This is, it's virtual as well, from what I understand.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good. Did you do
Well,
that?
yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, that's okay.
They have
Well,
a keynote, they can hardly.
yeah, right, yeah. Well, I mean, some people speak foot and speak last.
I don't care.
I know, I just trying to,
I just set the tone, so it won't be.
bear with me, yeah, a good tone. It may not be a bad thought. Well, I thought we'd be in kids would be fine, body, ton of people. I mean, maybe superintendent mainly, and, you know, it's.
Lots of. All I see is Fredo's so far, except maybe Steve Pierce, he lives in Sticks. He has to have a tomcat if he wants kittens.
Feeling kind of unprepared. I think I got about 4 business cards.
I have 3, so one of each.
You must have.
How's it going?
Yes, sir. Your card? It's great. It's really nice. Thank you.
How many did you have? How many did you have?
Oh.
Yeah.
I brought extra.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, how many did you have meetings? Do you have to say? 7, 8?
Thereabouts.
Oh,
yeah. One more after this.
oh, okay. You might be glad when all done, right? Which then we gotta move out and get the grant.
Have to go through the budget.
That's good. It's fun to celebrate.
Oh, yeah.
I think it did good, the parade was my favorite. Oh, it was just glorious. So Steve and I were right there when they kicked off, right when the Truman held it, so we got to watch it all. It was spectacular. Opened with the zoo and closed with the Clydesdale. Just the nicest parade.
And they really outdone themselves outside. I
Oh, it
thought,
was great.
I thought, I didn't realize how nice we're going to be. Did I tell you what, I probably don't have time to tell you about my granddaughter getting there. She then got wood at 2:00 at the, down here at the, with the cabin deal. And she thought, Grandpa, I've been wanting to go. I got a chance to leave now and go. I said, you don't have to hurry. And she started driving, and just before she got there, I called her back. I said, by the way, Grandpa, I ain't bought a dress yet. I said, you don't have to hurry. So then when she went down the mall, got a dress. And then she ended up,
I could have found a dress in 6 months.
Yes.
What are you laughing at there?
but anyway, she ended up getting there just a minute before we walked out.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got a good picture of y'all coming down.
Yeah, that would be good. I appreciate that. He did. He did. He did. I'll kick
He's
it
the
off.
host.
Yeah, he did. He did hold, or the co-host, but he did.
So. Everything.
Can everybody hear me? Can anybody not hear me? Hold up your hand, say. All right, just want to say thank everybody for coming out this evening. I'm Louis Riggs. I'm a state representative from 5th District up in Northeast Missouri. Hannibal, boy, home of Mark Twain. I have to say that, America's hometown. I'm on tourism committee as well as chair in the center committee on broadband. Also vice chair of economic development. So a lot of what we do out here, we talk about things touching concern economic development, in particular broadband internet or the lack thereof. We've gone around the entire state, holding town halls since June, basically hearing from folks, stakeholders, folks just basically coming in and saying, hey, here's my story, here's where we're at, here's what we need. My mandate from the Speaker of the House was basically go out there and find out whatever there is to find out, hold your hearings in Jefferson City. I asked for 2 a month, he said no. Originally it's supposed to be 2 hours, I said, can I have 4? He said yes, so that's how we squared that difference. But we're basically coming out here trying to find out what the facts are on the ground in different areas of the state. So we've been all over the place. We started up in Palmyra in my district. We've been over to Kansas City, we've been up to St. Louis. Perryville here, trying to think, we got one coming up in Eminence. We've been in Springfield, had another meeting up in the northwest corner in Albany. So we've tried to pretty well blanket the state. We had one in Ashland, basically for central Missouri. So it's real important for us when we write our report, we sit down, we're going to basically make 4 or 5, maybe 6 recommendations as far as what we need to do as a state to get to where we need to be. Currently, according to the last national ranking I saw, we're 32nd in the country. That's not good. It's better than it was. It used to be 41st. I was down in Arkansas here last month, and they were 40 something, and they didn't really want to talk about it. So it could be worse, but they're about 4 years behind where we were. At the same time, I actually went down to testify to them, and I just went through a chronology. Here's what happened in 16, here's what happened in 17, 18, 19, 20, and up to the present day. And in 2021, we're doing this. And this is designed basically to help us write a report. So if you have anything out there, white papers, I go down as far as carriers with their advertisements. We're talking about emergency broadband funds and how people get the word out that those are available. So far in the state, we're only using 11% of what we're allowed. Also talking to county commissioners about, you have money too. You can put that into broadband. If you don't have a plan, that's why God created regional planning commissions. Thank you very much, Crystal, for having us here this evening for what you do. A plan is not a contract. It is a planning document. It basically sets forth a hierarchy of needs like we have in the state statute. So what we've had on the book since 2018 is unserved, 10-1 or less, underserved, 25-3 or less, and other. People already have good internet, leave us alone. So we have different conversations every place we go in the state. Rural, we talk about access. In other words, we don't have it at all. We talk about it in the urban areas, we've got it, but it's too expensive. Everywhere we go, we talk about speed, and we also talk about something called digital literacy or access. Seniors who would love to do something with their doc through telemed, but they can't because they can't get a Zoom call to work or a WebEx meeting to boot up. We've also got folks, Kansas City area, are running around the city with basically RVs that have dedicated computer terminals on them so people can actually apply for work because so many of their applications now are online. If they don't know how to set up an email address or how to put a resume up on Indeed or something like that, we literally have people going door to door asking, can we help? So we're to that point. We assume everybody knows how it works. They don't. That's a problem we have never really talked about at the statewide level until now. So we're going to talk about lots of stuff this evening. We try to keep these as informal as we can. We start off with the format. Where are we? where we need to be, not want to be, need to be. We'd all like to have it tomorrow. We'd all like to have a gig up and down, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And last and certainly not least, what steps can we take down the road to make this thing work? So our area Northeast, our action step at the end of our meeting was we set up a regional steering committee. And we meet once every quarter, bare minimum. We've been meeting every month. And what we do is we talk about how universal access is going to happen for us. We sit down with our providers. They sit down, they talk about their maps. They literally will roll out their maps for us. We've gone down to the street level, i.e. the house on county road such and such, on such, you know, whatever corner in such and such county. We've done that. We know these maps are out here. The maps are bad. The FCC puts stuff out. It's out of date when they publish it. I got to talk to an FCC commissioner here this past month, said, yeah, we'd really love to get something out by October, but we're not going to. Maybe early next year, who knows? We talked about census block methodology and how it knocks people out. One person in the census tract gets service. The FCC says you're all served. No, you're not. We know better. So at the statewide level, we're going to have to take a look at maps, hard look at maps, doing some of our own basically self-help. We're also looking at ways to do stakeholder engagement. I've seen something good in West Virginia. Broadband Council basically has stakeholder engagement in real time. It has legislative oversight in real time, which we really need because we're going to be sending a lot of money out through the state. Last and certainly not least, it has a map, a real-time map where people can actually look at it and say, here's where my internet is, and more importantly, where my internet isn't. So that's just sort of what we're looking at here. It's a variety of stuff. There are no right answers, no wrong answers. We're not testifying on any particular bill. This is what we call for informational purposes only. So I'm going to go ahead here, turn this over. We're just going to start doing introductions and start with the gentleman on my right. You know him, you love him, Hardy Billington. And Darrell, on this basically go around the room and everybody tell us who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing, and we'll take it from there. So thank y'all for coming out this evening. Hardy?
Hardy Billington, State Representative 152, would cover Poplar Bluff, Needaville, the Malden, the edge of Campbell.
Darrell Atchison, State Rep for the 153rd District, so northern Butler, southern Wayne, and all of Carter and Ripley County.
Patty Boyers, I am the president, co-founder of Boycom, and I'm also the chairwoman of the American Communications Association.
Citizens and power of data. Power.
State representative suggested we come.
Steve Mills. Just before we got.
Our son's CEO of Boycom.
Hi, John Newton, welcome. I'm CEO of American Communications Association. Here to support our members that are here in the room today, Patty and Steve, and some members here in Missouri. This is where it needs to be, and listen and help me.
Crystal Jones, Executive Director of the Ozark Foothills Regional Planning Commission.
Speak word.
She says that.
Jennifer Williams, I'm with the University of Missouri Extension, housed in Carter County, Green Butler, Wayne.
Justin Sharp, local work from home bookkeeper, and have wireless and broadband at home, but love to have more speed and have an IT background, so it's fun to see if I can help.
Hi, Mitch Davis, lobbyist with the Giddens Group, representing the Cattlemen Association and T-Mobile, and then also president of the library board here.
Rob Myers, Butler County Emergency Management Director and chair of the Southeast Missouri Emergency Management Agency.
Kevin Down, mayor of Needleville. Tony Club, Wayne County, president of the Piedmont Area Chamber of Commerce.
Bruce Rickman, Butler County Assessor.
James Happy, presiding commissioner of Butler County.
Vince LeGrand, Western District Commission.
Josh Teeter, I'm the principal.
Matt Bain, Office of Senator Josh Hawley, covered 23 southeastern counties out of our district office in Cape and advise them on rural and David Shrimp, Ozark Border.
Dutch Anderson. Stevens Jews from Fox Radio. We have stations in Plymouth. So live in Wayne County. This is here.
I'm Deborah Parrish, the superintendent of Neelyville, R4.
Duncan County Commissioner, also Malden. Represent my 12-year-old who was last year.
Shelley Batten, I'm with Boyd County.
You've got some folks online. Everybody unmuted. Start.
This is Kevin Cantwell, President of Big River Communications and Circle Fiber.
Senator Holly Rader. I am a senator for Scott, Cape, Madison, Perry, Wayne, and Bollinger counties.
Hello, this is Jay Hardenbrook with AARP.
Hi, Bill Gamble with the Missouri Broadband Providers Association.
Hannah Barnett, Ozark Foothills RPC.
Who's bashful?
Yvonne Smith with City of Malden.
David Blaylock, City of Malden.
Is that everybody?
Mike McCormick. Mike, can you hear us?
So go ahead. Thank y'all for coming out again. And I also want to thank Jeff Sean for helping to set this up. If you ever get a text that starts, "Hey, buddy," it's probably Jeff. So, heard the name Ripley County. How much population is Ripley County losing in the latest census? 24%. Obviously,
30-some hundred people.
Only county in my neck of the woods that actually gained population is Rawls County. Rawls County is 400 households away from being completely hardwired with gig up symmetrical internet. They stopped doing fixed wireless several years ago. They were one of the ones, you remember the shovel ready money? They were shovel ready. They actually had a plan. They got out, they did it. They switched out their system twice. They've upgraded it. And what we've seen is a direct causal link between people actually coming to Rawls County and good internet. And it's around Mark Twain Lake. And we've got some lakes in this area. It's a nice recreational lake, 18,000 acres, give or take. But the internet there is better than the folks have in St. Louis County, which is where a lot of them are from, because they buy sort of like weekend homes. They come up and drown worms in the lake, and they hunt and they fish and other stuff during the year. Now they're staying. And the lumberyards are happy, the sales tax folks are happy, the school districts are happy, the commissioners are happy because there's more money singing to the cash registers through sales tax, and the assessed valuation is going up for everybody. So how do we raise a tax base without raising a tax? We add value to our property, and that's exactly what they do. So not all counties can be Rawls. Hopefully when they redraw the lines, maybe I'll get a piece of that so I can talk to folks who are happy with their internet, as opposed to those who aren't, which is most of my district. I have one of the 10 worst served counties in the state. It's also the third oldest county in the state. There's a correlation between that as well. A lot of folks who have internet don't know how to use it. A lot of folks don't know that they need the internet. What they're also finding out is folks who don't have high-speed internet to their home aren't selling their houses. Realtors are actually coming in and saying, we'll buy it for you because we want this house to sell. And if you're an age of 50, you're not going to buy that house. And how many people here have heard folks talking about the young people are going away and they're never coming back? Why is that? Because they don't have good internet. So the 12-year-old, probably the most important person in the room because you're representing somebody who's our future. I've got kids, let's see, one's in Kansas City, one's in Columbia. They have really good internet there. One of them would like to come back. I'm not sure about the other one. But these young people aren't coming back unless we've got good internet. So I want to go ahead, if we can, hear from the providers in the room, basically what you guys are doing, what counties you're serving, and what you see 2-3 years down the line. And I'll just preface this by saying Governor Parsons stepped up in August and asked for a little over $400 million from the federal funds coming in to go into the state. Basically, through the state, we have what's called spending authority. We have to authorize that through budget. And he's asked basically for $400 million. We had initially asked for 150 based on what they were doing to a neighbor to the north. I talked to the chair of that committee. He says, I think you can do that. Like, well, let's do 250. That's what a couple other states are doing. The governor actually raised that to 400. Hopefully we'll get all of it. I don't know how that works. Can't tell you. If I could predict the future, I wouldn't be standing here. I'd be picking stock on Wall Street. But we're guardedly optimistic we're going to get something done with that. But also leave the message out there. Commissioners get funds, cities get funds. So basically they can double the money if they so choose. And that's why the planning commissions are so important, because they help folks strategize to get at that. So if we could hear from the providers here.
Yeah, I'd like to add Patty to speak to, I added a keynote speaker to talk about that. You wouldn't mind?
No, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Okay. I know most all of y'all in the room, most friendlies, I think, most friendlies. Thanks for allowing me to speak. And I'd like to speak more from my position as the chairman of the ACA. Because what the ACA does is it represents little companies like ours. And Boycom is a mom and pop owned. The pop's down there, the mom's right here. And we've been in business for 29 years. When we started out as just a one provider of cable TV. And as we morphed into broadband and then into the phone service, we see that we are quickly approaching 74% of our revenue being from the phone and from the internet business rather than linear cable TV, what y'all traditionally call, go and get your cable TV. So we are in the broadband business. We serve in 4 counties, primarily Ripley, Wayne, Butler, and a little bit of Stoddard, and we are in Carter County as well, in Vanguard. We're not in Malden. I would love to help your little girl, but we are not in Malden today. To some of you out there talking about broadband, maybe academic. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at David Shrimp with Ozark Border. I know Steve Fuchs lives out in the most gorgeous place of Wayne County, but if he wants to have kittens, he better have his own tomcat because he's so far out there. And that's the deployment part of our issue. One of the things when you're rural and you've got 15 homes per mile passed is our average. If you're downtown St. Louis, that's 400 homes per mile passed. It costs just as much money to build that mile in St. Louis as it costs to build that mile in Ripley County. More if you're in Carter County because it's rock. So it's always been a matter of money for Steve and I in our little business. But we're the ones who see this problem firsthand. We're the ones standing on the edge of that great divide they talk about, the digital divide. So the ACA is this organization that's been in business for also 29 years. It's made up of about 700 little baby companies, sort of like us. It also includes TBS. It includes Cable One. It includes Mediacom, some bigger names that have lots of subscribers, but they serve in these medium to small markets. And so we serve rural America. So we're out there where the cost to deploy broadband are high. Our area, when you get down in the Malden area, you're kind of dropping off into the Loamy, into the Delta region. But up in the foothills of the Ozarks, it's a little more difficult. You bump up against Mark Twain National Forest. Those are scenic national riverways. We have lots of river crossings across Current River in the Donovan market, in the Van Buren market. And yet at the heart of Boycom's goal is to get everyone connected to the internet so they can live, so they can work, so they can learn, so we can retain populations. I know that you speak to the issues in your Representative Riggs, but I mean, we also know from Ozark border that, you know, meters are going down. They're losing meters. And so we know that and we see that as well as far as the population moving around a little bit. So we've done a lot to close these gaps on our own. And I'm not gonna tell you that's been easy, because we rely solely on rural community banks. You know, we do everything we do with brains and balls and borrowed money, and not necessarily in that order. A lot of times the balls come first, but we want to get everybody that robust. And so now we've seen where the state of Missouri, under Governor Parson and his new, I say new, he's been there a while, Tim Arbiter. He is the new broadband guru, the czar for the state of Missouri, so to speak. And we are doing some private government partnerships with the state of Missouri. These are grant-based, where we provide a percentage of the money. The state provides a percentage of that money, and we can get in there in areas that you never get a return on your investment, because everybody knows that you cannot sell below cost and make it up on the volume, Steve. That doesn't work. That's not in the radio business or anything else. It just doesn't work. So we have to be able to get a return on the investment that we have out there. We have been the recipient of 3 such grants. We built big time in Ripley County. Don't know why those folks aren't taking it, especially with the EBB, the Emergency Broadband Benefits Program. But for our area, this is personal to us. We get calls every day of folks needing our service, folks wanting our service. When COVID hit, we didn't go home. We saddled up and rode into it. Our business, our usage increased 37% because people went home. They went home to work. They went home to learn. They went home to protect themselves, and their connection to school, to work, to everything else was at broadband. And we all learned real quickly that broadband was a necessity. It was not a luxury. So closing these gaps are what these lawmakers are hoping to do. You know, the guys in DC, I can speak to, we've got both federal and state. They seem poised to make the necessary investment in broadband, but they got to get it right, Representative Riggs. They've got to get it right, y'all, because high-speed internet service, for one reason or other, has got to be available to everyone. Now, one of the things that we learned in this report ACA had commissioned with a think tank called Cartesian is that, and I can tell you this was a government report because I'm going to read y'all the name of it. It's called Addressing Gaps in Broadband Infrastructure Availability and Service Adoption, a Cost Estimation and Prioritization Framework. Can you imagine having that as your hashtag? Okay, so this is some of the most current report on the state of the broadband in our country. So Missouri is no different than any of the rest of the states. And then, you know, they're talking in Congress right now. They're going to vote on it Thursday, up and down, on the $65 billion infrastructure bill, of which there's $65 billion in there for internet. 14 of it is going to go to continue to fund the FCC's Emergency Broadband Benefit Program, and the other 40 to 42 of it is going to go to the states. I think that's awesome, because our state's getting it right. Governor Parson has instituted this private public partnerships with companies that can get out there. And if we have a line extension we need to make, we built into Remington Oaks. That was an area I'd never been able at Foxwood Point, way out there off PP Highway and T. We have been able to go into Donovan and using grant monies 50-50 grants, where we provide 50% of it and the state of Missouri provides 50% of it. And then now, as we see this 40 some odd billion that's going to go to the states based on their application process, the NTIA, which is under the auspices of the Department of, Commerce Department, rather than the FCC, is going to be the ones that will partner with the state of Missouri on this money, and all other states as well. This is a good thing. But one of the things that we learned in this report is that there are about 12 million households that lack access to speeds of at least 25/3. When I say 25/3, that's 25 megabytes coming down and 3 going up, which isn't a whole lot. It's a hell of a lot better than dial-up, but it's considered unserved if you have those speeds. That's a problem. So if the market can't provide higher speeds to those households, and the government is seeing this as like when the REA, FDR started building the REA. That's much of the same premise, that you've got to build it to them. Much of the same way the Universal Service Funds works with telephones way back in the day, in the 20s, to get phone service to everybody. So but there's so many people out there who already provide. The best way to do it, the NTIA says, is to partner with your local providers that are already there. Get in there, help them extend it, help them get down the road. So ACA supports deployment programs for these served and unserved, but these 12 million include an estimated 8.2 million households in census blocks that are reported served that are unserved. That falls back on the FCC. We've trashed the FCC tonight. I'm right there with you, because their mapping is abhorrent. And then they went through this RDOF, which was a reverse auction to get money out to folks. And in the state of Missouri, every census block was reported as served, simply because you had a lot of wireless companies and other companies, startup companies, that when you went to apply for a grant in an area that you know is unserved because you live there, and it's blocked because it says somebody else is serving there. Big problem. So the NTIA is working with the FCC, and there's a lot of challenges going on right now. Lots of court challenges, and there is a protest process with the FCC to protest these census blocks that we've learned. So as a result, we support, as the ACA, efforts in this infrastructure bill that's coming up to spend infrastructure money in the places that you need it most first, which is the areas that lack 25/3 or less than 100/20, 100 megabytes over 20 upstream, 100 down, 20 up. However, the most interesting thing that we learned, and you've already spoke to it, Representative, is the adoption gap is larger than the deployment gap, with about 30 million households not subscribing despite having it run right for their house. That was something that I found vastly interesting, because there is just as much a problem in inner city St. Louis with accessibility and adoption as there is in Carter County. Amazing. So there is a problem. It's the country's most pressing digital divide is this. Those 30 million households represent about 25% of the total number of households in the country. So there's about 36% of these households without fixed broadband, and they earn less than $20,000 per year. And we're all familiar with those kind of figures down here, because Wayne County, Carter County, perpetually impoverished county since the 1960 census. But the FCC came out with the Emergency Broadband Benefit Program is something that you said the state of Missouri overall is 11%. Nationwide, it's 19%. Only 19% of that money that's set aside by the FCC to help people pay their broadband bills is not being utilized. So So it's like 29% in suburbia, 28% in rural. It's just, to me, that was striking. So this 2,700 page bill that they're getting ready to, that they're marking up right now and they're supposed to vote on Thursday. It is the broadband programs to achieve universal deployment and adoption objectives. So the largest federal government investment in broadband in history. It's like investing in the REAs back in the 30s, the phone companies in the teens and the 20s. It's a big push. It's a huge push. And this bill is going to pour in $14 billion into the emergency broadband benefit. If y'all know anybody, how do we get that out into the areas? How do we let people know? We've advertised, Boycom has. We've sent it out in our bills. Of course, that gets the people who are customers already. But how do you reach that person that you've run in front of their house? We've worked with Donovan school districts to send notes home in backpacks to try and get that information to those folks. So there is, the NTIA is going to allocate $42 billion to go to the states. And I wanted to cheer on Governor Parson. Holly, if you're listening, cheer on Governor Parson and his program to partner up and then get this money in the hands of companies through this application process. And it's a short application process. It's a process where it's common sense. You apply for it, you get approved for it, you get the money and you build. And we've been successful in 3 of those. So as we see, Steve and I have done so much for so long with so little. We're qualified to do everything with nothing at all, but this is going to be great. If we can participate as a small company. I know Kevin Cantwell's on the call, his fiber, his Circle Fiber, his Big River Telephone. Anytime that you can get an existing provider that you can come alongside and say, let's push it on out into the boonies and get it out there where that next home can get it and the home after them can get it. When you think it costs anywhere from $35,000 to $45,000 a mile to build fiber optic. Plain and simple, that's aerial and underground average. So it's a very costly, and if you can imagine, you've got 15 homes per mile passed, so you're spending almost 50 grand to provide services to 15 people, and you get a 60% adoption rate. So you got about maybe 11 folks taking it. So it's a business. I know Vince is sitting there looking at it. It's a business, and you have to be able to pay your bills at the end of the day. Got to pay your pole attachments. Got to be able to do all the different things that we're doing. So for me and for our little company and for the ACA, and as I represent 700 other little companies, this is an opportunity to get some money in the hands of the people who are already moving it along. And so just prioritize these unserved projects, get it in the hands of the folks who need it the most, who need the service the most, the school children, and help us get this emergency broadband benefit program out, because it is it's consumer oriented. They have to apply for it, but it's up to $50 a month. And when my 100 over 20 service is $49.95, that goes a hell of a long way for paying your cable bill.
So if I can add on that just a little bit. How many people know we have a state broadband fund, had it since 2018? I did a town hall in Ava, did another one in Perryville, and talked to 2 individuals who were doing startup, did not know we had a state broadband fund. Okay, that's on us. We need to do a better job of publicizing that and getting these resources out here. Anybody aware what Mississippi's doing with their ARPA money? $700 million going to co-ops. Like 1.2 billion, more than half of that's going right out to the co-ops. Arkansas, 14 out of the 17 co-ops are internet service providers. Don't see quite that dynamic here in Missouri. Of course, we've got St. Louis, Kansas City, Columbia, Springfield, what have you. But to the point about geography and getting that last mile, one of the huge problems we deal with the FCC, these reverse auctions, is the people actually out there doing it, i.e. our neighbors, people we know, we trust, who've been out there since the beginning of time, the 1930s, are getting knocked out of this process. It's called census block. Reverse auction, basically, the big fish ratcheted it down. I had the privilege of handing one of the members of the FCC board a copy of a letter from the Attorney General of Missouri complaining about one of those providers who came in here, well, sort of. It says they're coming in to do a wonderful job. They're not. Saw it. He's like, oh, yeah, them. What do you mean, them? Okay, these are the people who are taking all this federal money and not doing a bloody thing with it, except putting it in the bank, doing the minimum required. They check the box. They say, oh, your county served, and you're not. And I actually had a Perryville town hall member basically stand up and say, hey, I'm a mile and a half outside of the ring that this fixed wireless provider set up this lovely tower. I might as well be on the dark side of the moon. I got nothing. And there are folks out there who have nothing. And that's dial-up, and 2% of the population still on dial-up. So we got a long way to go yet, but one of the things we do in these town halls, we hear success stories. Folks who are actually out there doing it. The important thing about the state fund is it's matching dollars. It's not funny money. This is stuff, people, you have to have skin in the game. Just like the pole attachment, REA would run it out to the pole, but you had to take the $5 out of your own pocket to get it to the house. Same difference with last mile. Same basic concept. So when we have a state fund that does grants as low as $25,000, that's the lowest so far. But we're dealing with all these devices in the house. I talked to one provider, said, how many internet equipped devices do you have? What's the record for your service area? 27. You know what the average is now? 7. Next year, the average will be 10. Year after that, it'll be 12, 15. Pretty soon, 27 will be routine. So anybody realize that Ring doorbell is a meg each? Each one of those cameras runs a meg. Like, oh, gee, that explains a lot in my house. Problem is, we put more of these things in our homes. We got smart everything. Those little things that go along the carpet and eat up dust freak me out. Those internet equipped, that stuff's drawing down bandwidth. So the more we get into this, we talked about 25, 3, whatever. The feds are now saying, recommending 100 up, 20 down, worst case. When they start saying recommend, that means in a couple of years, they're going to say require. And that's what we're trying to do to peg the state standard to where the feds are so we don't fall behind. We're already there. 10-1, 5-10 years ago was considered to be all that. 25-3, we put it in the statute 2018, knew it was going to be obsolete, just didn't realize it'd be in 3 years. So we got a lot of work to do out there at the statewide level, but it's really encouraging to hear from providers, and we've got some more here in the room, what y'all are doing out there already. That's what the state fund is designed, is to equip you. It's not census block, it's community standard. You're not going to get knocked out the same way the FCC knocks you out, or RDOF, or anybody else. It's the state. We handle these things differently. And we have a challenge process too. It basically says if you're going to do an overbill, in other words, people already have it, guess again. Also put something in the statute last year. My bill says if you don't get your stuff out, you're hacked together in 3 years, give the money back. Our Attorney General will chase you down for it. So we're deadly serious about this at the state level. I want to thank our folks from the federal level for getting the money in the state. It's just sad that 2/3 of it in the CAF2 auction went to a provider that's doing what they can with what they've got. And I think they guaranteed the feds it's going to be 120. Well, people doing speed tests beg to differ. So problem we have at the federal level is they're not doing a whole lot in enforcement. We don't have that problem at the state level. That's why that state fund is so important. Get return on the investment. $7 for every dollar put in. The industry standard is 3.5 to 4. So we double that state fund what they get at the federal level, just because we are good stewards of that money. So I'll be quiet now just a minute. We'll go on. Other providers here, if you let us know what y'all are up to, where you're at, how things are going, and sort of thumbnail sketch where you guys want to be. Who's next?
Let me go next. Yeah, I'm here.
Yes, please.
Can you hear me? Hello. You got me? Hello? Let me know when you can hear me. I got David
I can hear you
Blaylock
fine,
here.
Kevin. I can hear you
Okay.
fine, Kevin.
Okay, can you hear me in the room?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Hi, my name is Kevin Cantwell. I'm the president of Big River Communications, Circle Fiber, headquartered out of Cape Girardeau. We've been around for 20 years. You know, a lot of stuff I had on my list has already been addressed by Patty. She did a nice job on reviewing stuff. Kind of go back what we're doing, where we are right now. Big River, we're building out fiber in southeast Missouri. Our goal is from Herculaneum down to Sykeston over to Poplar Bluff up to Herculaneum. We call that our golden triangle. Be about 250,000 homes, premises we're going to cover over the next 3 to 5 years. We're doing this with private money, my partner's money, and some investors. Again, if there's some way we can tap into some government money to assist us and not have all the rules, regulations, and stipulations, then we take a look at it. But for right now, it's all private funding to do what we need to do. You may have seen the last couple of weeks, we had a ribbon cutting and started construction in Poplar Bluff on a fiber network. We believe fiber is the future. The history of Big River, we started out, we were a dial-up customer. Then we built out DSL throughout southeast Missouri. As the Internet of Things that were spoken of by the representative continued to grow, we knew that wasn't going to do it. We built out the 4G LTE network in counties throughout southeast Missouri. We basically sold that out. And the next level is fiber. So our goal is to, again, deliver fiber through premises. We'll use the wireless network, offload customers where it makes sense to put fiber, expand the wireless where we need to. I think you mentioned there's a 12-year-old in that room. You know, when you look at that 12-year-old, he probably has a smartphone. And, you know, we of the no hair, gray hair generation think that smartphone is the greatest thing in mankind, but understand that's the oldest technology that young man will ever have in his hand. Not the latest, but the oldest. And as we continue to go down this path, we talk about kids in the neighborhoods, population. It was brought up how population is declining in the rural market. You know, one of the major reasons it's declining is because of lack of internet access. When we talk about children and this next generation being internet savvy, in reality, they're internet dependent. If you took that smartphone away from that young man, he may not be able to find the door, and that's not being disrespectful, but everybody's using their phone to do things, and it's not going away. It is the future. Now, there's two things when you build out these networks. You can build them out, but they're not going to do any good if they're not affordable. So if you look what we're doing in Poplar Bluff, you know, we're building out a fiber network, and we will build in Poplar Bluff and then go out into the surrounding communities. You know, our product is a gig product. A gig is symmetrical, both up and down. And why is that important? We're on Zoom calls now. You know, people didn't realize what upspeed meant until COVID hit, and they got on Zoom calls and they saw all the freezing and delays and trying to trying to upload things. So when you have a symmetrical service, it's the same speed up and down. You know, our products are going to be a 300, 500 and gig. As I said, doesn't do any good to build it if they're not affordable. So if you take our gig product, it's $79. Again, if you look at what you might be paying in your communities for a lesser service, I promise you're paying a lot more. A 300 by 300 product is $49.99, well above the potential 100 by 30 that the federal government may put as a baseline. You know, we're not building this thing to meet the federal government's guideline today. We're putting in the infrastructure for the future that's affordable for the individuals today. You know, I've been in numerous calls. Again, Representative, thank you for doing this across the state. I was in Perryville and some of these other ones. You know, we've built out a gas, water, electric, sewer in these communities. And what we have to understand is we're building out a brand new infrastructure that's going to connect every premise in a town. That can't be done in 3 months or 6 months. You know, some of these towns had over 100 years to build out their infrastructure. You know, our goal, it takes about a year to build this out. The other thing we have to think about is not only are we building, but other providers are building. And when you look at the supply chain, the bill of materials, fiber, things of that nature, we have orders out now over 18 months in the future that are, you know, but we're not the only ones. I'm sure Boycom does and other providers in the room. So again, there's only a certain amount of suppliers out there. So again, we have to look at the bill of material, be able to get that in and get it going on the construction side. We're excited about this. We know this is the future. We're building it. We're not waiting around. Like I said, if there's some government involvement that is not burdensome, doesn't have all the rules and regulations that past stuff has, we're more than happy to take a look at it. But as I said, for right now, it's all private funding that we're doing to get this thing built out and to cover the markets that we need to serve. Like I said, I call it the Golden Triangle for Big River. If there's any questions or anything, I'm more than happy to take them. But again, fiber is the future. I think everybody understands that. And that's what we're building.
Any questions? I have one for you. Tell us about satellites.
You being
Why fiber? Why not satellites?
you know, satellite, everybody's going to have a broadband connection into a premise within 8 to 10 years. As Patty brought up, you know, the electrification of the United States in the 30s and 40s is going on right now with broadband. In some areas, satellite may work. 5G may work. It just depends on the cost associated with it. Again, we're very active in the satellite space. One of my nationwide customers is a satellite provider. You have things like called propagation delay. You have the ability to actually send the data up and down. I was looking at Starlink today. You know, they're starting to roll out their low orbit satellite. It's not going to be able to deliver the speeds of fiber, but if you don't have anything, then it's going to be the best thing that you can get. So I think in the end, you as a customer will not care as long as you get what you need to be able to run your business or live your life. So as a provider, I see all of that as almost co-opetition. We're going to be competing against each other, but we're also going to be utilizing each other to deliver a universal broadband offering. So satellites out there, 5G's out there, some wireless providers who might do a point-to-point shot. If it meets the needs of the customer, if it's affordable and it can deliver what's needed, I'm all for it. Something else that was brought up, and again, we'll open up retail locations, education. You have to be able to, you know, we're all about educating the consumer on what internet is, and everybody knows what it is, but how do you use it to make your life better? What can you do? You know, I'm calling you out of St. Louis today. There are quite a few people, quite a few real estate agents throughout southeastern Missouri who called me over the last year saying, hey, can you provide fiber or broadband in lake communities or certain locations throughout southeast Missouri, because people in St. Louis want to move down there and work. You know, it's interesting. I brought this up in Perryville. The first couple of customers we signed up in Jackson, you know, the communities, and again, the communities have been tremendous. Poplar Bluff, everybody about accepting us and working with us to deliver fiber, and the discussion on economic development and things of that nature in the communities. What a lot of people don't understand, and again, this is part of the educational piece, is that secondary economic driver, that shadow economy that people are not familiar with. And the example is, you know, of the first 10 customers we turned on in Jackson, 2 of them, one was a graphic designer contracted to a company out of Dallas, Texas. And the other one did work for a company in St. Louis. So when you look at that shadow economy, the individual in Texas and Dallas was claiming that individual as a job. The person in St. Louis was claiming that individual in Jackson as an employee. But that check and that money was going to Jackson, Missouri. It was going into Jackson's bank. It was being spent at the stores in Jackson. So there's a tremendous shadow economy that a broadband infrastructure can help drive economic development in communities in which people work remotely. But you can't do it if you don't have broadband. So COVID has helped push this. Again, Patty, myself, other providers, we've been pushing broadband for years. COVID took a baseball bat to a lot of people and hit them in the head and said, you do need this. And so the adoption rate, things of that nature has skyrocketed. As it's gone up, though, so has the demand for broadband and the Internet of Things that you brought up earlier. 7 things. People don't realize, how many it's called IoT or the Internet of Things that are in your house. Again, Ring, your thermostat, your security system, your garage door, your refrigerator, all of these things are coming out. And that doesn't include a iPad, a computer, your smartphone, your smart watch. All those things need internet. And that's where we have to have this broadband infrastructure that can support the needs of today and going into the future. And, I don't think there's any doubt that from the provider point of view that fiber is the future as the main baseline for the internet. So again, that's what we're building out. We're excited about it. Again, as I say in Poplar Bluff right now, pardon our dust as we're building up and down the roads and hanging fiber and doing what we need to do. And we'll build it out from Poplar Bluff. And like I said, connect all the communities as we continue to grow. Our project's probably going to be, a 5-year project to cover, like I said, the 250,000 premises that we've identified.
To answer your question about the technology, fiber optics is the best. Back in 1992, when they passed the Cable Act on the federal level, there was nothing to do remote because everybody thought with it, figured out some way to get information over copper line. Of course, we learned real quick, DSL doesn't work very well unless you're really close to the central office, whatever phone company is providing. And then we learned there was a big scurry. We thought, well, coax cable. The cable companies that were in just in linear cable TV business, that was a much better conduit than copper. But the thing that is the best conduit is fiber optics. To this day, have knocked down the ultimate capacity for one single class fiber. So there's no telling what you can do with the fiber optic network, whatever Kevin is building, what we're building. We've got some of the first fiber to the home subdivisions in the county. Satellite companies, wireless companies, these little point-to-point, point-to-multi-point, every one of those suckers comes back to one. Comes back to a fiber, comes back to a cable someplace to get on this worldwide web that we speak of all the time. So the middle mile and the transport mile, but you need all of those things. It takes everything to get to Wayne County out there where Steve Hughes is at. He's got to have a tower. He's got to have a repeaters. He's got to have, in order to get something shot to him, because it's the cost of getting it to him is just atrocious. It's just inconceivable cost. So folks that are in Carter County, where they went from 6,300 or something, 5,500, and the bulk of those folks were from Elsinore. Dropped off the base of the air from Elsinore. But all of those people, we have point to multi-point to those folks, but it all comes back to a wire at Boycom at our head. So you just don't lose any signal. The further you push that fiber out, every node you have, it's like it drops. So to answer your question, it takes everything, just like Kevin said, but you ultimately want.
Any other questions? I'm going to ask folks from the schools. Leslie tells us now our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, as of the start of school this year, 23% of our kids, 1 out of every 4, does not have good internet access. And we've had this conversation with folks in St. Louis. We've had them in rural areas. Basically, the answer is the same. We've got all these great hotspots out here, that aren't worth a plug nickel if you don't have a signal to activate them. So a lot of folks have the hotspots. They give them the tablet and they say, here's your tablet, make us proud. The tablet doesn't work if the hotspot doesn't work. The hotspot doesn't work without the signal. This is all over the state. So, and we've heard from people all over the place about COVID and how we flipped the switch and everything just basically went dark for a lot of folks. Interested in perspective from schools around this area, what your experiences were with COVID, what your experiences have been since, and how are the hotspots working out for you?
Wi-Fi outlet in the parking lot. Access internet. But students close enough to the school, all in shutdown, students were going to the school, accessing the internet there. We have a lot of students that are temporarily out of school. They're in school and then they're out of school, and then contact trace. So it's this back and forth. We're providing everything they need to learn from home except for internet. Crux of online learning is a lower level of learning with regular internet. I think to get everyone the best internet available. Online learning is still just not good. So, you know, really have to make sure that we're squeezing every drop of education.
You guys know what percentage of students you had that weren't basically able to log on?
At one point, I know my building hit a little over 40. Being able to get any internet other than the hotspots off of the phone. That lasts not very long. Get 3 or 4 running off of one phone, you know, start charging you. You have a parent for a call. So they charge me $10 every time my kids put it in there. So we send them to the library and things like that.
Is there a way that we can get something, not us, I know Cable One or Sparklight is a provider at your school, to know these kids if they're in, who's in front of their house, or if nobody's in front of their house.
In front of their house, I mean, like
there is a connection, but they can't afford it.
Yeah, that may be a part of it too. They have access to it.
That's where this EBB comes in.
Right.
Because the qualification.
I learned about that tonight.
Okay, that qualification for that, like the first 2 or 3 boxes, you get reduced or free lunch. Boom, you're eligible.
That's it.
That's all it takes. And then it's up to $50, you know, and so that is something, just talk about the education representative, that right there, if we could get just that one single thing, because the FCC in their great scope of things, this was a good thing. This was a good thing they did. Instead of regulating us and telling us that they're only going to let us charge X amount of dollars, you know, nobody can grow that way. I don't know a bank in the world that's going to loan me any money to build any more cable if I tell them all I can charge is $19.95, because I can't pay for my transport into my head and pump it back out to them at that rate. So if you get, I mean, I hate the word subsidy, but that's exactly what it is. But it is for this specific reason, to help these kids and families that are now having to work from home. If somebody's got a job where they can work from home, to help subsidize, or in some instances pay for the whole thing on a monthly basis, ongoing. We just don't have a very good take rate on it, and I just don't know, you know, the FCC is probably not real good at
Just
doing some commercials on TV. I mean, for heaven's sakes.
That's what we do. Parents and students and families.
How do you, I mean, I'm asking you, how do we get that to those parents? Because I'll guarantee you've got Boycom customers in that middle school, kids.
Yeah,
in that middle school. I can help.
Confidently that Dr. Dillon and anything.
They're like my kid, my son, I had to unpack the book bag. He'd bring it home and parents had to ransack to find anything. He wasn't going to give you anything out of the book bag. So I think part of that's sometimes you can put anything you want in the book bag. The kids don't necessarily get it out and show it to the parents. And
Here's
that's
something
one.
we can do for you. Angela, Shelley, I want to get with, what is his name, Steve Bell, general manager at Haven One. I want to get with them and us and them and come to y'all and say, what can we do to get this program in the hands of those kids? You know, that parking lot, if it's running in front of their house, we can help them. And if my cable's in front of their house, I can help them. If Cable One's in front of their house, I know they're a participating member in the EBB, and get it in the hands of these kids. We're getting ready to appropriate another $14 billion to go into that program. It'll go on forever.
That's what they're talking about.
It's a
Permanent.
federal program.
The schools now text most of the parents, so maybe that's
See,
an
that's-
efficient way to
You
get.
know,
You talk about the backpack issue, maybe it is.
You have a flyer.
that gets out.
You guys can post on your Facebook page.
So
Yeah, I
if
think,
they want
you
those
know,
smartphones,
depending
just
on the
about connect
information
to
the flyer
Facebook.
provides, like,
something to get it in the
specific
hands.
instructions. Obviously, the benefits to keep them investigating. I parent for more than about 3 or 4 cents that you lost. Audience, you gotta, Twitter, you gotta get there quick.
And it does fall. Providers cannot do this.
Yeah, it's consumer driven.
That's right, yeah. Well,
Can't even-
Woodcom, $100, that's after.
What,
Yeah.
sorry, what, at Neelyville, Windstream contacted us and, did the grant for us. And we gave them, the addresses of all the students in our district with no names. And so they went through their maps or whatever and identified all of the households that qualified for the, whatever it is a month.
Well, that's a different program.
Is that a different one? Okay.
I can't remember the name of that one, John. But it is, it's running through, it's a complete loss for the name of that. program.
EFC or
It has to do with, Steve Bell, help me out here. It's a program that you're the provider to the school. As a broadband provider. E-rate. Well, I know but it's running through the E-rate system. That program it's an FCC program as well. And it is awesome. It's almost like a voucher program where if Kevin Cantwell and me and Cable One's all running in front of somebody's house, all 3 of us, they can give that voucher to that kid and that kid can go home, Mom, Dad, look, the school will pay for this.
Right, and they are providing us with talking points that we can contact the families to let them know that that Windstream is going to be contacting them.
That's an awesome program too.
So they're not, oh, how did they get our address or how did they get our name and that kind of. But what we found out at Neelyville basically is, yes, we can give them a device. And we could even, set up hotspots or equip the parking lots where they can come in. But the bottom line is, if they're not at school, most of them do very little. It doesn't, some of them have the tools that they need. They have the internet, but it's like they get back to school and, oh, we had stuff to do, they need to be.
That's a breakdown the family. That's another discussion. for
Yeah,
another time.
we actually had that in Hannibal where we had a whole bunch of folks signed up for online learning. The superintendent looked at it semester. It was awful and just basically sent a letter out saying, we're done here. It was nice while it lasted, but you're coming back to class, period. We're not going to extend this courtesy to you anymore. So there's a difference between the folks who are actually doing what they're supposed to do and not, and that's again on the parent larger conversation. But the take rates for the program itself are pretty doggone low, and it's out there. And a lot of districts I know of were literally running buses around with hotspots. So they're dropping off meals during the pandemic, and they're actually park out front for a while. If you need to upload something off your tablet, you can do that. Then they've got the hotspot literally pulls up to your house. But that's pretty elaborate, and who wants to do that for the rest of your lives? Not too many of us. So I just wanted to check as well. Anybody familiar with Houston, Missouri, what they've done, municipal network? They basically built out their municipal network. The town is an ISP now, a service provider. They are advertising as the work from anywhere capital of Missouri, all over the place. And well, if you've been to Houston, there's no crime, very low taxes. They've networked all their trails in town, really nice community. And they basically have decided we're going to advertise as this oasis in Missouri where you can get vitamin D and sunlight out in God's country. And they're doing it. But their philosophy is somebody please come in here and knock us off this perks. We don't want to be a service provider for the rest of our lives. Someone please come in here and compete with us. So there are folks out there doing that now at the municipal level. I was going to ask, we've got some commissioners in here who all dealt with CARES Act money. Show of hands. Are you scarred for life?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Changed the rules about 6 times.
Yeah, the difference between what they did with CARES, and this is back to our federal folks, enough people scream bloody murder about CARES Act. And I talked to providers who were employing people 6-7 days a week trying to get literally the fiber into the ground. It was physically impossible to do what the feds said you needed to do by the time you did it. So they relaxed a little bit. They freed up their guidelines. There's between CARES and the ARPA funds. Basically, they lit the fuse, said you've got basically until 2024 to get your ducks in a line, 2026 to get everything out the door. CARES, it was by the end of the year. It was ridiculous. We had places with 30-day window to basically get your requests in, get processed, which was insane. So this is a whole different analysis here. What we've run into with providers, and you guys already talked about it, is the construction lags. We're talking 40 to 60 weeks. Some of these providers, they don't have the crews to put it in the ground because everybody's hiring everybody else. Oh, we had the great resignation. So 4 million people left their jobs in April just because. I don't know what that's all about, but it's a problem. Got all the for sale or the help wanted signs in all the windows. The folks out there just flat out aren't working. We incentivized not working, which was a mistake. Sorry, we stopped doing that. Hopefully that ship will turn around a little bit. But I just want to talk with folks about the difference between the ARPA funds and the CARES. So you guys feeling a little more confident that the feds aren't going to come in and pull the rug out from under you because they've given you a lot more latitude. Self-reporting as opposed to coming in and auditing every move you make. Just want to hear from these commissioners what your impression is as far as ARPA versus CARES. No particular order.
Yeah, legal counsel. Just here recently. Presentations. CARES money handed through to the state, and the state changed the rule. That was the feds that changed that. Our legal counsel, up until last week, he still says sell.
And so y'all realize broadband remains a priority. Priority means all things being equal. This is up here. The other stuff's down there. So the reason I keep flogging the planning commission folks is what they do for a living is to sit down and say, okay, we're going to prioritize this. They're not going to take broadband out of there anytime soon. 10 years would be my guess. So as a priority, everybody knows it's a problem. COVID exploded the need for that. We'll talk about telehealth here in a couple of minutes. But at the same time, the state's putting all this money into broadband. Counties have the opportunity. So do the cities, for that matter. City of Springfield's doing it. North Kansas City's already done it years ago. They took money from one of the gambling bouts up there and basically built out a network. And then Houston, or City of Houston and Texas County's done it. So there are some folks out there who are doing it. I had commissioners in my district literally ask me, gee, can we do the broadband? I took a look at it and said, yes. I'm a lawyer too, by the way, and took a look at it and said, yeah, put my lawyer hat on. It says fine. What's the first thing they did? They went out and they took one of the school campuses. We've got 2 school districts in the county, and they built out broadband to one of those campuses. They took some other money and they took it in Shelbyville, which is the county seat, and did some infrastructure spending there. And the plan is they're going to spider web that out throughout Shelbyville. And I mentioned it's the 3rd oldest county in the state. The problem there is you got a lot of folks who need to go to the doctor. And this is not COVID. This is just normal cold and flu season. They don't need to run around sick people. And probably the worst call I got was from Stitch went in her early 80s. Her husband's in his mid 80s. He's basically housebound. And they tried to do a Zoom call with their doctor, and they couldn't because they didn't have the bandwidth. And it's not like they're at the end of a gravel road. They're sitting on a state route. And there's a trunk line in their yard. I'm going to say which carrier, but they didn't have the access. Literally, so she's taking somebody who's housebound, has to get him up, and she's in her early 80s herself, like to kill them both to get him to the doctor. This shouldn't be happening in 2021. So just kind of curious, anybody out there with any telemedicine background or telehealth? I've seen statistics as high as 1,500% increase. Folks are putting staff behind these issues now. I know at the federal level, it's something people are taking a very hard look at. In terms of Medicare, Medicaid, all the other things that go along with that, relaxing some of these guidelines. They're basically able to bill for it. The doctors like it. The patients like it. They don't have to be around other sick people. And the one thing we never talk about that we probably should is what this does for mental health. So Secretary Ashcroft, Jay Ashcroft, Secretary of State, is working on a pilot program to take our public libraries, of which are almost 350 in the state, at least one in every county, and saying, let's do two things with it. Number one, let's turn them into job centers. Only 34 of those in the state, 10 times as many libraries. So if you have an industry recognized certification, you need to come in and take a proctored exam. Guess what? We've got a computer terminal for you. It's ready for you to go. You don't have to go to Timbuktu to take that. So you can do it at your county library. The second is HIPAA compliant areas within those libraries where people can literally do a Zoom call or WebEx or whatever with their doctors. That includes mental health. So the stigma attached to mental health is still out there. True story. We had it's called Mark Twain Behavioral Health in Hannibal. It was on Broadway. Nobody used the front door of that place. They had a back door. Everybody parked in the back lot and he went through the back door. What's the stigma attached to going into the public library? Well, gee, you want to get smarter. There is no stigma. So, I mean, there's some people out there doing some really good outside the box thinking with that. I just wanted to see if that was something in this area where you guys see a particular need for that. I'm not sure what the demographics are here as far as seniors. I know we've got lots of them all over the state. But I know as well from workforce development standpoint, we've all got the same problems everywhere. We just don't have enough workforce centers, and that would solve the problem. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, in the rural areas where there are no medical providers or few medical providers to even start with, even pre-COVID, even all of that, this has always been a gap that has needed filled for our rural community. Our county, Wayne County, very, very few medical providers, and especially fewer mental health providers. So broadband do more than just benefit our economic in those areas. It's going to benefit our community. So that's one of the reasons why I am particularly interested in this on behalf of MU Extension, because my role with MU Extension is community and economic development, and that factor is one of the primary concerns for me. So,
and as a librarian, I will speak forward to trying to access their help. Biggest problem we have is providing a private place for them, which we've added a branch and it has a private place for them. So I'm really pleased to do that. But let's go back 12 months, 14 months, 15 months. And this really didn't just start with COVID, it also started with this country. We have the census workers coming in. You all need to provide a station for people to fill out the census. They're going to be able to do their census. And that's when we pointed it out to the census people. But I won't say they weren't listening. I don't think they understood. I don't think they understood how little access there is to the internet in our rural communities. And you want to talk about the numbers going down in the census. I go back to the fact that we told people they had to fill out the census. Now let's even do another part of this. Also, we try to teach computer classes and help people learn how to use a mouse, how to use a keyboard, how to access an internet site, and they don't have an incentive to do that because they don't think they need it. So we are really trying to battle that problem of giving people the new tools, and that's what a computer is, or a phone. It's a tool for them to be able to use to access stuff. If they don't know that the internet is there to do that, why would they come in and learn how to use a computer, whether they use a computer for telehealth, distance education, not just kids, parents don't get it. They just don't get it. We see that every day with a parent coming in, wanting help. We do the best we can, we try to get them into it, but at the same time, so we've got to start thinking about basics as well as access. Broadband isn't everything, education isn't.
I want to pick up on extension, what you guys have been doing in Bollinger County. Can you walk through that for us?
So I am also part of the Missouri Broadband team through a new extension. There have been 2 different pilot programs that we have been part of. The one in Bollinger County was a pilot program where the community banded together and formed a public-private partnership. And so they are still, none of these things happen overnight. So they are very much still in the process of working through this. What this process has done is it's taken a community-driven effort. These community members who have interest, who have motivation and desire to see broadband brought in, have been working together for a year in advance, 2 years in advance, forming committees, pursuing the action steps that they are assigned to on their committees to try to work together and form this public-private partnership. They've gotten that all together. They've been in touch with providers. They had Charter Communications willing and ready and able to come in. And now they've hit a snag with funding from their own county commissioners. And so they're trying to work through some of those things, trying to figure out another source of the money. So all of that, that's the bottom line as far as I can tell. We've got to have this community-driven effort. We've got to have these kinds of groups coming together so that we can then take this outside these 4 walls and educate our community and motivate them to care about this issue. And so that's one of the big projects. We also have a brand new program rolling out, but it is very much centered around the same concept, working with community-driven groups. It just breaks it down a little bit different and how we facilitate that. But we are very much interested in partnering to help educate. So with our providers, if we can help partner with you all to help educate, with our schools to help educate parents, with the library system, we're very interested in those efforts to educate as well.
It's going to go back to something we did up in Northeast. So our little broadband journey started in 2016. So you've got Northwest Roundtable, about 20, 25 counties on the western side, Northeast Development, 12 counties over in the east. We all sat down in the middle of the state, literally at Brookfield, right in the middle of 36. And we blocked off an entire day, and all we did all morning was complain and howl and whine and scream and holler. And the afternoon is like, okay, so we got that out of their systems. What are we going to do about it? And we put like 5 things up on the board. What do we want to emphasize? We didn't even get to number 2. It was broadband, period. That was it. That's all we talked about ever since. So when we put together our steering committee, we did it on a 2 RPC basis. We've got Northeast, which is the far northeast corner up on the Iowa border. Then Mark Twain, which is my area, a little farther south. Hannibal area, it's based in Perry, Rawls County, goes as far down as Audrain. And what we did was put that steering committee together over that basically 12 county area. And we brought in providers, we brought in county commissioners, we brought in mayors, we have brought in schools, we have brought in colleges, we have brought in workforce development, we brought in DED, everybody else we can think of, and we've got our RPCs in the middle of it. So I always go back to MACOG, and you guys do the SEDS every 5 years, how the Comprehensive Economic Development Survey. I know a lot of folks have been out there surveying as far as where the telemed capabilities are, the broadband itself. I'm getting some of those reports in from some of the RPCs now. It's because they're current. And it's something a lot of folks are in the middle of that process, and they all, they click through at different times. But I just want to encourage everybody here. You've got the nucleus sitting in this room. And that's basically what we started out was, it was just a gripe session. And that's all we did was we griped, but then we got over it. And we've been moving forward ever since. And folks in the Northwest, our little motto is there's intelligent life north of I-70. We haven't had a statewide elected office holder in our neck of the woods since Joe Maxwell was lieutenant governor. Everybody remember Joe? Didn't think so. He left in 2004. So we basically have to punch above our weight all the time. It's just what we do. It's the way we do it. We don't know any better because that's what the good Lord left us. In a city group like this, all these different stakeholders, folks from all over the area, you got the raw material sitting here. It's just a question of what you do with it. You got your Fed folks sitting here. You got your provider. So I encourage everybody, you've got your sign up sheet. I'm not going to take this one. Somebody handed me one another and I walked off with it. Like that was a mistake. So I just took a photo of it. But, you know, I'd encourage everybody here, basically sit down and figure out who can do what. You know, commissioners, you know, I encourage you all, and then you guys hear from everybody, just the same way the reps do. You get the phone calls, I'm in the parking lot, my son can't go to the bathroom, blah, 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 but they can upload the assignment. And those, you know, the schools when they were closed down. We know we've got the businesses out there. I lost some in my district. I'm not sure you guys lost a few in yours. It was COVID. It basically shut them down, and all that, whatever federal money flowing through, just didn't do it. And we lost 30% of our small businesses in Missouri as a result of COVID. Everybody realize that? That's from DED. The other thing they told us was at any given moment during the pandemic, 40 to 45% of all the bandwidth in the state of Missouri during business hours was soaked up by Netflix and YouTube. Nobody saw that coming anywhere. So we also identify some gaps of resilience in our own network. Folks who were paying a pretty penny for what they thought was really good internet weren't able to use it because literally everybody else was on the pipe at the same time. I'll know how that happens. It doesn't just us in the Capitol. We're all on our cell phones in the middle of the chamber, like 100, you know, how many of us in there? 163. Well, a little less than that. We kicked a few out. But you know, you got 160 people in there in one space and everybody's trying to do something. We got our laptops and everything's just going crazy. So we don't even have good internet at times of the day in the Capitol building in Jefferson City. So I mean, this stuff is everywhere. So I just want to go down a couple more things here. First of all, Senator Rader's still there. If she had any questions or comments she wanted to add, is she still there?
Hey, I'm still here. Can y'all hear me all right?
Yes.
I would just like to say, Patty, I've missed you, and we will, we need to have an offline discussion so that maybe I can be a little more helpful when it comes to, you know, getting our folks the money that they need, because of course we all know that so many of the wireless providers did get the RDOF money, and that's, you know, 3 years out or however long before we even know if they're going to have that coverage done. And so it really just puts those areas in a holding pattern and with lots of promises on the horizon that may or may not show up. So let's chat, and maybe you can give me some direction, and Kevin, same with you. Give me some direction on maybe some ways that I can be more helpful with the governor's folks that are handling the funds.
I'm all about that, Holly. You just give me a call, babe, and we'll figure it out.
Got it.
Lots of things that we can do. And one of the things that I'm most encouraged about is this last round that Missouri put together a package of. We went off to the NTIA, but we're supposed to find out something. But the NTIA is saying, FCC, your census block sucked. And
It does.
And it does. And you've got all these wireless and these startups and these overbuilders that are getting this money, and they have no intention of building. None of them. They have a list. They have some that have voluntarily turned their awards back in. And then there are some that are being investigated. And so that's all encouraging to know that we've actually got a government looking out for a little bit of the best interests. I was on a call with Congressman Mike Doyle, who is Congressman from the Pittsburgh area of Pennsylvania. And he is the chairman of the subcommittee on telecommunications in the House of Representatives. And one of the things that he said, this has been a couple of weeks ago, Monday, one of the things he said is he simply didn't understand why some people don't want to take the internet. You know, and I guess there is a percentage of folks out there just simply don't want it. They don't want to have it. They don't want to be bothered with it. And so I think I'm seeing the click here from the education standpoint. If you especially think your older folks don't want to mess with it because they don't understand it. And they still, and to get their flip phone out, and their little jitterbugs and try to call their grandkids. I get all that. I'm heading down that road real fast with the jitterbug, Hardy. We're not gonna talk about how old we're getting. I do see the need for this education. I don't think it's part of it. If I can't help you, I can find somebody that can. We can make enough noise, Holly, we can get her done.
Want to address the take rate issue a little bit as well. So some of the providers out there, I'm going back to what our experience has been around Mark Twain Lake. So we're seeing 85, 90% take rate or better for folks out in those areas. So they want to stay there all year round. I get it. We've got Co-op Rawls County basically goes out and they do a political campaign. They literally go out and knock doors, just like we do. And they say, hi, we're 2 miles over to the east, or we're 2 miles over to the west, and we're coming your way. Would you like to join us? And they go through what we're going to offer, what it does. You can work from home. You can see your doctor from home. You can do basically anything you want to from home. They're getting upwards of 90% take rates from those folks. These are the folks that say, yeah, give it to me. So what do? Well, at the end of the day, that basically helps them reduce their cost. So they're not having to go, wild and crazy, but they've been taking the federal stuff since day one. They took the shovel ready money and they've been plowing federal dollars. Yeah, they've been plowing federal into that ever since. They took CARES Act money, they plowed CARES Act money into it. They're going to take ARPA funds, they're going to play ARPA into it. Whatever else is other stuff coming at them, they're going to take that as well. So there is money out there and there's a lot of it. The importance of our state fund is it's responsive to you in the state. Challenge process is good. The strategic plan is good. We know exactly who needs it. Folks who don't have it, number one. The folks who have IFI are number two. And the folks who already have it, y'all need to go someplace else and leave us alone until we get the folks who don't have it or don't have good access taken care of first. That's what the state fund is all about. Theoretically, that's what they all should be about, but they're not. So providers have to make money somehow. Money doesn't grow on trees, as you mentioned. So they're going to go to the pockets where you have population first. It's kind of fun. I got to sit in a Sheraton Valley meeting here within the last 3-4 weeks, and we brought in commissioners from 4 counties, and the county commissioners literally were going down to the house level. Such and such on County Road, such and such. We've got a subdivision coming out here. They've platted this one out. We're going to have houses out there. So what are the providers looking for? Density, where they can find 4 or 5 or 6 customers right now, as opposed to string them along. Well, I'm told if you've got 4 per square mile, you're going to break even. More than that, you're going to do okay. 10 and up, you're going to be pretty good shape. Their little object lesson was little town Saverton, Missouri. You can't get any more rural than Saverton, except by locking down 22. Nobody was bringing internet out there anytime soon. It's down a little valley. We did a town hall in Avis, sort of like the same geography down there. So you got the river sitting there, but you're in the middle of nowhere. You're 10 miles from Hannibal and you're all by yourself. They literally went in there and told people, hey, we're coming this direction. The realtors were the ones who stepped up and said, hey, we've got to have this. And what do you know about the take rates? The take rates up there were over 90%. What about the houses being sold? Gone, like that. And the assessed valuation went up $5,000 to $7,000 per parcel for every one of those. We added fiber to the home, every single one. So the tax base goes up. So the schools are jumping for joy. The folks at County Road and Bridge Funds jumping for joy because they got more money coming in. How they do that, they did it fiber to the home. So I mean, it's a pretty simple formula, but they've been at it since 2009 in deadly earnest. Lynn Hodges runs that outfit. Lynn has told me anybody wants to talk to him anytime, anywhere, just call him up. He'll give you all day long. This kind of guy he is. He'll tell you all about it. But they've been successful at it, but they've been purposeful about it since day one. So they saw the shovel ready money. They were ready. They did it. Part of that's just basically their board. Their board's like, how do we keep these young people home? Well, here's your answer. And they actually saw it where their subscriber base was going down because young people were leaving and the old people stayed and died. They had fewer customers than they did the year before. It's like, we can't do this. This is not a sustainable business model. So out they went. But they've been taking federal money. They've been taking as much as they can get from all sources. But again, we go back to feds and the whole census block thing. We don't do that to state farm. Trying to get the community standard, which is we're going to serve the people who need it most first, which is the way it ought to be. And that's real first mile access. All right. So I'll just shut up a minute. Hardy?
Yeah. My office, one time a year, we mail out like 12,000 booklets. Or 800. I think I can put in my booklet that information.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
That's
so I
great.
can be able to do that for anyone for sure. So.
Good gathering, a lot of good information. Putting it all together and out of the area to be passed. Thing I can do.
Bring your shovel.
Well, yeah.
It's all be shovel ready. You can all get out there.
You guys,
Can't find it.
something we will do in Missouri House, and I didn't go across the other side of the building. I'm sure Senator Ritter can tell you they feel the same way. We got a bill out last year. We had 147 to 3 in the House. I didn't take it personally because all three of them voted no on everything. They all turned out. So it's okay. Went through the Senate unanimously. What we did was we expanded the sunset on the state fund out to 2027. So it gave them some breathing space. We also did the same thing for 5G out to 2026. A lot of people want to invest in 5G. I get it. You're not going to see 5G out here anytime soon. It's just the density of the towers and all the other stuff that goes with it. We just don't have the people in rural Missouri to do it. But we also sent out a delegation letter. It was $250 million. They got 65 people in the House to sign that. For the record, that's more than half the House. And they were the rural folks doing it. I actually had some of the suburban folks saying, well, let me have that. They wanted to sign it. Sent out another letter here recently, as we're up to 22 at the 400 million level. So as the number keeps going up, we've got more and more people signing on and saying, hey, let's do this. I'm going to testify in front of the subcommittee in the House that's dealing with the federal funds. That's going to be Wednesday. Maybe in person, maybe Zoom. If I can get Zoom to work, that would be fine. But what I'm be able to tell them is what progress we're making out here in these town halls. So one thing that can help you help us is if you've got case studies out there, if you've got advertisements about how we're getting this EVB stuff out, anything out there that you've got in writing, a study, anything that NACOG has, your RPCs, the last 4 or 5 years of what these surveys look like. Northeast RPC is doing one now where they're getting out talking to folks from Kirksville all the way over basically to the Illinois line. We call it the People's Republic where I'm from. You guys have Arkansas, we've got Illinois. But what we also do here is we go back to the House, we talk to our peers. The governor can propose all he wants. The legislature disposes. In other words, we carve on it. We carve on it in the House first, and we send it over to the Senate. They carve on it some more, and then we sit down at conference and whatever shape it ends up being, and send it over to the governor's desk, and he does whatever it is he wants to do. So at the end of the day, all this is going to end up on the governor's desk in the third week of May 2022. And what I want to do is, and I'm just going to be straight with everybody in this room, we need to make sure, rural Missouri is 37% of the state, but we're the ones who have the hardest impact in terms of what we don't get. That's just a fact. St. Louis, Kansas City get their own monies. In addition to state money, they get their own pot. We don't. So in order for us basically to punch above our own weight, we need to hear from folks like you. And we've got folks in here from Cattlemen's, Farm Bureau, pork producers, corn growers, soybean, dairy, you name it. All our ag groups are on the same page on this. We've got to have this. We are past needing to have this. And Cattlemen's is the one that I think has the most fun because they basically do. It's like a regional reunion. And they're the ones the cowboy hats having the most fun out in the hallway because you all know the Cattlemen's in the building because they're the one laughing the loudest. They have a good time. But people, when they come into the Capitol, we pay attention to you because you're among us. And frankly, people come from many, many miles away, hours away, to come down to the Capitol and say hi. But they also come there for a reason. They're there to advocate. That's grassroots at its best, basically walking in and telling your state rep, hi, here's something we need. This is me from home. You know me, I know you. We've got to do a better job than this. We have got to do a better job than we've done. 2022 is the no questions asked. So people ask me what the report's going to look like. I don't know yet, but I can tell you this much. There is a sense of urgency on people like us, Senator Rayner. We know what the stakes are. We know if we don't get it right this year, we are done. All the federal money coming at us, it's a once in a lifetime event. That's it. What you see is what you get. Our object is to get as much as we possibly can and file that into broadband. Because it's no fun the rest of the states in the 21st century, and we're not. It's no fun for our folks who would like to see their doctors in Zoom, having to haul whatever 40, 50 miles one way to go see the doc or go to the hospital for a visit when they can do it in the privacy of their own home in all types of weather. We all know that, Earl. We get it. Transportation is an issue for us. Mental health's an issue. We got counties, what's the sister ran as the peds nurse for how many counties because the county health departments don't have the money to have one on staff. We get it. 24% of one county is gone. We get it. That's our reality. What we need to do is translate that into a different reality in Jefferson City. In other words, make sure that that money goes where it's supposed to go. And that's our commitment to you is we'll do everything in our power to make that happen. But we need help. And the help we get from folks like you, putting together regional committees, putting together plans through the RPCs, basically getting that money out there, we call that the force multiplier. That helps us a great deal.
Matt Day, Senator Josh Hawley's office, and I promise I know we're wrapping up here. It's the only senatorial employee in the room. I'm not trying to filibuster because you're the only person who's got a longer drive than me tonight. So
Only Senator Rayner can filibuster.
So I had to make sure Josh Hawley gets kind of confusing when I'm Senator Rayner. Just first off, Mr. Chairman, it's the second time we've been able to join you. Really want to thank you for Speaker Scobo's leadership, the governor's leadership, and bringing all of this effort together. Really appreciate your point because that's much how the Bolinger County program that we've seen a lot of efforts and gains out of it, really getting close to some things, starting with just like this. So the interim committee may be creating that just in doing your work. So applaud that. I've worked with a lot of folks in this room, weekly, and we all talk about low decline all the time. And we talk about it sometimes like it's inevitable. It's the outside force, acting upon. And it's not. It's made in choices every day at all layers of government, at all layers of industry and economic factors. It's choice. And I think the folks here in this room, our leadership at the state level, your leadership at the federal level are ready to make a choice to do something different and bring back that prosperity. They're saying that we just, everything's online as we've talked about all night. And if we're not going to have an on-ramp to that part of the world, the whole world is going to move on. Our people here in Southeast Missouri don't have an on-ramp. That's just absolutely unacceptable and a sin. We've talked a lot about the census issues tonight, just because I know it's on a lot of folks and stakeholders' minds in the room. We think there's some real problems with there, and we're looking at trying to work with some counties on how to address that. You've got ideas on that, give me after. Certainly agree and concede all your points on the shortcomings of the federal programs with how we've been able to do things differently as a state government here. But I can tell you there's still ongoing efforts to fix the problems that we see at the federal level. I think back to around this time, maybe December last year, chatter was that the mapping fix was at that time the most bipartisan issue around December in the Congress, and that was going to kind of be fast-tracked in 2020. Well, I think we've all seen what the political environment of 2021 has done, and we are so far from that coming up on House and Senate calendars. And it's really just a sin because the language we basically agreed to, probably unanimous consent in both chambers, and fix that. We're still really focused on that. There's been some talk about these WISPs. Primarily, there's 2 out-of-state WISPs that have won a huge portion in first half 2, hard off in this area. First off, major problem. Heard it from our local folks. Everybody that we talk to understands the problematic aspects of that. One thing I would point out, Mr. Chairman, is that, and this is something I just recently learned, is most of those, the bulk of those payments are expense reimbursements. So it's not sitting in an Illinois or Iowa bank, the whole award amount earning interest. But it's still extremely egregious what's happened in that circumstance, because now that area is blocked from further funding and blocked from, if a provider, Patty or whoever looks at it, they go, oh, well, somebody's building out there. Why would I go compete with that? So it's actually more egregious than somebody, just sitting on the interest and stuff. Something else we've learned about those processes since Josh's 3 years in basically now is there are really, really stiff penalties. And as Patty will well know, National NTIA has what's called merit reviewers. But y'all in this room, and if you're in one of those areas where they have one, you don't have to wait on NTIA merit reviewers. Josh has told me that when the first deadlines hit, I'll be in places like Marquand and Altenburg doing speed tests, and we'll be sitting in direct CC. So very, very concerned about that. Also very sensitive to the overbill station. That's something, government should get into telling private businesses exactly where to go where. But with this, as you pointed out, once in a generation shot at this apple, you have to watch that as well. It's something he's really working. 477 census challenge, we've got to fix that. You basically have, and this is what we find out all over the country, you have local competitors, and you all know what that's like in any business sector. It could be, farmers that way. I work a lot with farmers, and farmers are looking to see how many trucks, the neighbor pulled off and stuff like that. Basically, what it's meant to be there to know where there is service and where there's not is being abused by some firms to prevent, eligibility for federal deals. One of the things that Josh was talking with other members of the Senate, members of the House, is how we can look at how to de-incentivize that type of behavior. Basically, would be equivalent in like a state court reform measure of like a loser pay type scenario in these challenges. There's just a lot of conversations going on of how to fix that part on the federal side. An idea that I had on the EBD program is the legislature could work with the associations, so MSTA, MSP, school boards, and administrators, and to utilize that text system that my knowledge in Southeast Missouri and Jason Smith's district, I believe every district is using that direct to parent texting process. Marty, that was an excellent idea about putting it in your directory as well. And that's just something that we're going to continue to work with people to address this. We're all ears. And Senator Blunt, Senator Smith, or Congressman Smith's staff had we're kind of dividing and conquering tonight. So I'm going to share everybody's thoughts as well. We really, really appreciate your attention to this. It's something we think about and talk about every day. And we're glad to have the state legislature and
Thank you. And one thing we didn't really mention was the period when the provider falls flat on its face to get the federal dollars, they're knocked out. Your service area is gone for 10 years. 10 years, folks. Yeah. 10 years ago, 10-1 was all that. Today, it's obsolete. I can't imagine waiting another 10 years. It happened to him in Vermont. Because of the size of the state, when provider got knocked out, basically the entire state got thrown under the bus. That's when they put together a statute, basically said municipalities can go in as their own broadband districts and provide it yourself. So that was necessity being the mother of invention there. I mean, there are ways of getting at this. Other states have done it. The point we should probably make is no one state has figured all this out yet. They just haven't. If they did, we'd rip them off and that would be, we'd be done. The other thing I always like to say is every county creates its own weather. You know, every county's different. They've got their own priorities. Folks do what they're going to. The courthouse politics are different. You go one county line to another. I can think of providers in my neck of the woods who are doing stuff that are great guns, and people right next door think that the internet's evil. It's just, you know, to that point, it's like, oh, you know, it's, well, I got internet, I got Facebook to check the grandkids, I got an email address. Well, that's not broadband internet, okay? That's a cell phone. That's not the real deal. And that's just something we have to work through that. We talked about that before, the digital literacy and adoption. It's something we need to work on. Yes, sir.
Companies talking about problems. Commissioner, how do we avoid those companies? How do we know?
That's something where the challenge process at the FCC level, so other providers, they can tell you all about this stuff. There are some really bad actors out there. Problem is that the application process, when you promise the sun, the moon, and the stars, and the FCC doesn't, or whoever, USDA, doesn't do due diligence on their end, you're toast. So they've got the comment periods where people can basically get in there in the middle of that and say, wait a minute, these folks went into this state, they fell flat on their face. You know, they set up all these towers. They said they're going to blast out, you know, 20, 25 mile radius. They did 5 or 10 or whatever. And that's the speed test we're talking about, where people actually say, oh yeah, we've delivered such and such. No, you haven't. We can prove it. That's why the state mapping is so important, and we get that resource of self, but also how do we get that state mapping where it needs to be? We need those speed tests in real time. That's what they did in West Virginia. And you talk about every picture tells a story. Brother, they telling stories there. And the incumbent providers who aren't doing what they're supposed to really don't like the story. But hey, facts are facts, and you can't change those. What John Adams said, facts are stubborn things. They are. But that's something where you've got these providers, they got this, you know, whatever track record in other states. Talk to people in other states. You got your national associations, talk to people at the association level. You got Steve Hobbs at the state level now. He's former Missouri House member. He's Audrain County presiding for how many years? Talk to Steve. Get these people mobilized and say, hey, we got to do something at the association level. We got to get these people and run them out. And we do it before the feds, you know, put the ink dry on that document. So yeah, you're approved. You know, it's just something we got to be watching these folks all the time, because they're here to make money. They're not here to help us. They're basically, they treat us like a colony. They're extracting money from us. They're not giving us anything in return except, you know, whatever bare minimum. They check the box and move on. And the census block, you know, kicks us all out. That's just that fly in the ointment at the federal level. We have no control over yet. But I will say they're moving in a different direction. They're signaling. They're wanting to go more to a community standard than census block. As everybody knows, census block is flawed. They just keep using it because it's on the books. They haven't changed the statute, and so it's a long answer to a short question, but you got to be talking to federal folks all the time about that, put them on it. That's where you fight back.
Satellite system. Supposedly going to enhance our cellular coverage and provide data county. But our issue is that they say that AT&T and our cable providers or internet basically piggyback off of them. And we don't want to help subsidize somebody to come in and compete with companies who are already trying to provide that service. So dealing with that issue, of course, we don't know a whole lot about this SBA communication to do this. So it kind of, you know, we're a little bit leery about it in the first place, but we're talking because our county needs for economic purposes, educational purposes, communication purposes. We need better internet and cellular coverage.
That's when I'd say you need to talk to Tim Arbiter at the state broadband office, and they've got a list. Yeah, Janie, folks at the state level have the list of providers, and I'm not saying it's the approved list, it's just the list. But it's like you call City Hall to get your tree trimming done. They've got people on the good list, who actually have a certificate and they have workers' comp insurance and they can prove it. You got the other ones driving around in their trucks, knocking on your door every storm, and you don't want to hire them. That happens in broadband. A lot of folks out there doing stuff they shouldn't be doing. They see federal dollars, their eyes light up. They say, oh, catch me if you can. We got internet all over this state. People put in 10, 11 years ago. We don't know what the heck is in there because a lot of them were fly-by-nighters and they came and left. And that's that. Another encouraging thing I'll tell folks is we got your middle mile haulers finally. A lot of them getting into the game that weren't in it before. My side of the state, it's Ameren. Basically, got plenty of capacity out there. Testifies, yeah, we use 25% of what we have in capacity. We'd love to share that with other folks. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Piggyback on us, we've got some issues we need to deal with the make-ready side of things because utilities are regulated differently. There's an FCC component to that. There's a state component. Lots of moving parts, but something we're having that conversation. How do we make this happen? Folks get it. They understand it's all hands on deck. We've got to get it done. It's just a question of how to do it right, get it done the first time, and let's get it done in 2022. That's really where we're at this moment. Any other questions, comments? Any questions that answer that you have for us that we should have asked you? Yes, sir. It's the State Broadband Office. It's Missouri Department of Economic Development. It's within that, you can drill down, if you look for the State Broadband Office, the person who runs that is Tim Arbiter. They have a list, basically, who also in the state, basically how to contact those folks. And a lot of it's problem. They would have a list of all those providers. The feds would have another database of the FCC, USDA, Commerce, all the folks who've taken those, and they can contact your congressional offices and they can find that stuff out very quickly. Phone call or an email. I found that bureaucrats tend to react well or raise from people like us because we have their budget. So they actually don't put us off. They get back with us in a rather prompt fashion. They're snickering and a nod of the head in the back. Yeah, they do that.
And providers.
That's the plan, is the folks who are supposed to be getting it first are the ones who don't have it. So that is
See, for
in one of us.
the project. That's a grant. Combo like a 50-50 rate. We participated in 3 of the 50. And you provide them with a plan. Extension here, community here. You build it off of what you've already got. We've got new builds in areas where we couldn't connect it to our main system. But then the state approves that, so yes, those people. We have all these letters from all these people who live there that say, please bring it to us and get the letters, get it all put back, send it up there to the state. The state says that is a worthy project, and then they fund it. Now, it would be an area that we could build on our own, probably not, because we won't get a return on the investment. But if I can get in someplace where it only costs me $15,000 a mile to build instead of $35,000 a mile to build, I'm going to build it. Now, I've still got to maintain it from here on out.
And I understand that.
So, but that gives us an opportunity. That's where we can go hand in hand with the state of Missouri. Steve and I are private. We are a corporation. We have stockholders meeting. It's in breakfast, 2 of us. And so we can make these kind of decisions and apply for this stuff and then give an economic projection to the state. They grant it to us and we build it. And we've had 3 successful stories.
Unfortunately, we live in an area that T-Mobile Electric, but you have service area.
Kind of within a 1,000 feet of the property.
They won't do an AD construction, they won't say, hey, you pay me this amount of money, I'll bring it.
In the morning.
I just, one thing I do want to do is that, so, you know, I work for the people at 152nd, in Hosek, Missouri. So if anyone want my cell number, I got one phone number. If anyone want my cell number, I'd be happy to give to anyone. Call me for any question you need. Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything else we didn't cover? Say thank you all again. Thank you, Hardy, Darrell. Thank you, Holly. Join us this evening. We're going to have our next hearing, it'll be October 18th. We live stream that. Hopefully we'll have a lot better time live streaming this time than we did last. But again, it all goes back to 2022. So I want to thank you all for coming out and hope that what you've got here in terms of critical mass, y'all can come together and start doing some of these regional, meetings. And universal broadband access should be the gold standard we should all be aiming for. And it's, we got a Northeast. If you got any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to talk with you and introduce you to some of our folks. But we're all over this. We know what the problems are. It's just a question of getting the right people, the right place, at the right time. Guys are with it. So again, thank you all for having us this evening.
Yes, thank you, Representative Wood.
Thank you.
There's a whole host of information.
All right, Darren, talk to you.
I have no problem doing that. Thank you. And I can do the help.
I was questioning. I have a couple of friends that internet business, they're trying to expand. I don't know if they know about those funds you were talking about. So just to make sure that they know about it, where can they go to find more information about it online?
It's very good, very good. Thank you.
Very good.
Complicated life, yes. But again, thank you for holding.
Department of Economic Development, State Broadband Office. They still want to like. Thanks for It's always a good selling point, right?
I'm talking about.
I for one appreciate it.